you need to have a full house of courage to be able to do something like that. And if you don't have the foundation, then your house is going to fall down. And whenever that opportunity to speak out, to speak what you know is true to the outer world, you're not going to do it because you haven't had these prior experiences of courage, and you haven't reinforced your courage through different and uncomfortable acts like going through haunted houses. I was thinking about a quote recently, and I've had it on my mind for about 2 weeks, and it's this: life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. And why I decided to talk about it today and not one of the other days is I got the chance to go into haunted houses. Yes, so interesting. And you're like, okay, I get it. Hey, you were courageous and you went into haunted houses. You're cool. But stick with me here, all right, as I sip my tea. So, if you're uncomfortable going into haunted houses, it does take a little bit of courage to say, okay, I know I'm a little scared. I know in my mind that my mind's trying to convince me that it's scarier than it really is. I need to have a little bit of courage to be able to go into these haunted houses. And maybe it is a little too much for you, so what you need to do is break a scary activity down to a smaller step where you do feel like you can be a little bit more courageous, but just be outside of your comfort zone. So instead of going through the whole of the haunted house, maybe go into the haunting grounds, so where all the costumes are walking around. So that's a good step to gaining that courage to actually go into the haunted house. And that leads me back to my quote of life shrinks or expands based on in proportion to one's courage. Is a person who isn't able to cultivate enough courage to be able to actually go into a haunted house misses on those experiences of the haunted house, of, let's say, skydiving. That's an extreme example. So like I said, you would want to ratchet it down if you're deathly terrified. But without that courage and building of the courage, you're unable to have these experiences. And if you don't continuously push yourself to get into uncomfortable situations where it does take a little bit of courage to push yourself into it, and then to build that courage up over time, whenever you are called to actually perform a courageous act, a real courageous act. So let's say, for example, I'm going to say Jordan Peterson. So Jordan Peterson's a well-known figure in the media sphere now. He is I would say a great influence on young men and getting them to become better men than they were or are right now. And he got really famous, but how he became famous was that he spoke up against a bill in Canada restricting free speech. And why I say this is courageous is because almost everyone in the Canadian government was on board with this bill to restrict freedom of speech. I think the bill was talking about getting people to address transgenders by their proper pronoun and putting it into law. So he spoke out, whether you agree with him or not. He spoke out and said that it's a restriction of free speech and you can't do that. And whether you agree with what he says or not, it did take a lot of courage for him to come out and speak his opinion. Because in the end of the day, most of the government and where he was working at in the universities agreed with this bill all being proposed. So he was going against the masses. And that's where true courage is needed, is when you are all alone or you're only with a few other people and you're trying to speak your voice to a greater crowd on issues you think that are important. And it does take courage and bravery to go against the majority or to be slandered for your opinion as well. That takes real courage. But you don't get to that point if you don't build your courage and build your bravery up from these small incremental steps. So to go back to the haunted house, going through a haunted house that you are uncomfortable going through and that you're actually kind of scared to go through, it's actually pivotal that you push yourself off to go through these haunted houses because it builds on your courage. So think of courage kind of like a house, right? Right. So what Jordan Peterson did, you need to have a full house of courage to be able to do something like that. And if you don't have the foundation, then your house is going to fall down. And whenever that opportunity to speak out, to speak what you know is true to the outer world, you're not going to do it because you haven't had these prior experiences of courage and you haven't reinforced your courage through different and uncomfortable acts like going through haunted houses or speaking your mind in debates or similar situations. I can think of it right now. Don't make me think on top of my head. But that's why it's pivotal to push yourself in uncomfortable situations and also to try to expand your courage in the smallest ways in any way possible, even daily. I kind of do this with cold showers. I know it's not the most courageous thing in the world, but for me, it is something that's very uncomfortable for me to do. And every time I get in front of the cold shower, it's always my mind racing. It's like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to go into the shower. It's going to be a shock. It's like, I observe the monkey mind just going off in my head. And it does take a little bit of courage of just being like, you know what? I'm pushing this monkey mind away, and I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, go. And that's how I build all my courage up on a daily basis. And today was another instance where I build a little bit on my courage of saying, okay, we're going through 3 haunted houses. I am a little scared, but I'm going first. I'm the first one going. Maybe that's a little too much for our people, but you in your specific situation can push yourself into the uncomfortable zone just enough that you gain a little bit of courage every single day. And for me, that's how I was building my courage today is, hey, I'm going first in the haunted house because it does make me a little uncomfortable and it scares me. And let me tell you, the first haunted house, there was a long hallway and I saw something moving at the end and I was like, oh crap. Took 2 steps and of course one of the actors sprinted straight at me and I screamed like a little girl. But I still went through. So here's my call to you guys: doing something courageous daily, or trying to do something courageous every single day, or better, every opportunity you get, whether it's something really small or a little bigger. So whenever that time does come of the big acts of courage come, you can be ready, because you've built little acts of courage, just a little bit, to get to a point where when that big act of courage is needed to pull on that courage and act on it, it's ready for you, because you've built it up over time.